Now, in this module, you should be able to learn about the significance and the use of so-called elemental analysis of glass and the various techniques which are used for this analysis. For example, atomic emission spectroscopy, X-ray diffraction and fluorescence method, and also Raman and infrared spectroscopy. Let us briefly discuss as to why do we need elemental analysis at all. Now we know that glass samples are often found on the crime scene. As a result, a very quick and a very reliable glass origin determination becomes very important in forensic sciences. Now, although refractive index does perform glass fragment identification properly, but still there is some overlapping in the refractive index data, and as a result, this information of elemental analysis becomes very important. Now, the analysis of the elements present in the glass fragment, which is under investigation, it can actually help in determining the chemical composition of the glass fragment, and as a result can then help us to identify the actual source of the fragment. Now, the concentration of certain elements in glass actually chemically characterized the glass source. In other words, the chemical composition of different glasses is different. That is, all glass products, they display variation in the concentration of these elements and contain very small concentration of some trace elements also. Now, the concentration of most of the elements is controlled by the manufacturer itself to impart some specific properties like color to the glass. Now, thus, this can also be used to identify the product type of a recovered glass sample. But even some individual glass objects that have got major concentration of certain elements is also controlled by the manufacturer, and this will also display visible changes and can give very useful information for a forensic comparison. Now, element concentration may be used to differentiate among glasses which are made by different manufacturers or glasses from different product lines of the same manufacturer. Now, although the wet chemical analysis can also be done, but this type of analysis of glass is most of the time consuming because of large amounts of sample preparation and repetitive measurements and manual work in general. So, certain alternate methods have been developed by forensic scientists like inductively coupled plasma atomic emission spectroscopy, X-ray diffraction and X-ray fluorescence techniques, and Raman and infrared spectroscopy. Now, each of the observed and the measured values, they must actually be inconsistent between the questioned and the known samples in order to prove the same source. If any of our findings, they are different, then we make the conclusion that the questioned glass sample cannot be associated with the known sample of the glass. Now, let us discuss the different methods of elemental analysis in details. Let us first discuss what do we mean by inductively coupled plasma atomic emission spectroscopy. Now, by spectroscopy, we actually mean the study of absorption and emission of light and any other radiation by matter. It includes the study of interactions between the particles such as ions, protons, electrons, and with other particles as a function of their so-called collision energy. Now, inductively coupled plasma atomic emission spectroscopy, which is also known as inductively coupled plasma optical spectroscopy, is nothing but an analytical method for the detection of trace metals in the glass fragments. Now, it is a type of emission spectroscopy that uses inductively coupled plasma to dissociate the sample into its constituent atoms and ions. They return to their ground state by emitting electromagnetic radiation at wavelength characteristic of a particular element. Now, emission spectroscopy uses some means to excite the sample. Now, after atoms or molecules are excited, then they relax to lower levels, emitting radiations, which is analyzed by means of a suitable detector. When calibrated against the standard values, this technique provides a very good quantitative analysis of the original sample. Now, this inductively coupled plasma is nothing but a type of plasma source in which the energy is supplied by electric currents which are produced by electromagnetic induction, that is by time varying magnetic fields. Now, this is the most common technique for elemental analysis with which almost all the dissolvable samples can be analyzed properly. Now, this method is actually suitable for dissolved glasses and is a very rapid and a very precise method. Now, it actually consists of two parts. One is the ICP torch and the second is the optical spectrometer. Now, ICP torch, it consists of three concentric quartz glass tubes with the output or the work coil of the radio frequency generator surrounding this part of quartz. Hence, argon gas creates a plasma here. Now, the moment the torch is switched on, an intense electromagnetic field is created within the coil by the high power radio frequency signal, which is further created by the radio frequency generator. Now, the argon gas which flows through the torch is ignited with a Tesla unit that creates a discharge through the argon to initiate this process, which is then switched off after ignition. Now, the argon gas, which is ionized in the intense electromagnetic field, now flows in a particular pattern towards the magnetic field of the radio frequency coil. Thus, high temperature plasma of almost about 7,000 degree Kelvin is generated as a result of the inelastic collisions created between the neutral argon atoms and the charged particles. Now, the solid sample, which is the dissolvable glass now, in the case of glass, is first dissolved and this mixed in water. Now, this sample solution is then changed into an aerosol by an analytical nebulizer and then directly introduced into the plasma flame. Now, the sample then collides with the electrons and charged ions in the plasma, and the sample itself breaks down into charged ions now. Now, the molecules break up into the respective atoms which keep on losing electrons and recombine repeatedly in the plasma, thus giving off radiation at the characteristic wavelength of the elements involved. In some designs, nitrogen gas or compressed air is used to cut the plasma at a specific spot, and transfer lenses are used to focus the emitted light on a diffraction grating, which separates the light into its component wavelengths in an optical spectrometer. While in some designs, the plasma is directly impinged upon an optical interface. Now, after the light separates on different wavelengths or colors, the light intensity is then measured by a photomultiplier tubes, which are carefully positioned to view the specific wavelengths for each element line involved. The samples can be analyzed quickly. Now, the intensity of each line is then compared to the already measured intensity of the known samples of elements, and their concentration is then compared. Thus, this process plays a very vital role in elemental analysis. But the problem is that the ICP burns the sample, so all the non-destructive examinations should be done before this analysis. X-ray diffraction and fluorescence techniques for glass analysis. Now both these techniques can be used for elemental analysis of glass as well as for soil. Now X-ray diffraction methods are especially significant for the analysis of solid materials in the forensics. They are often the only methods that allow further differentiation of materials under laboratory conditions. Now minute contact traces, small sample quantities can be easily analyzed by these methods. Let us consider these techniques in brief. Now coming to the X-ray diffraction technique. Now we know that forensic science is actually based on the innovations and the latest developments in the field of science and technology. So any technique which will help in the investigation of crime can be adopted for forensic science. Now one of the most important part of forensics is the use of analytical techniques to uncover the fact from even the smallest traces of evidence, like very tiny glass fragments from the crime scene. Now X-ray diffraction and fluorescence techniques are such techniques which can be used to characterize a wide variety of substances of forensic interest. But because of the form and size in which the crime sample exists, the amount of material available and restrictions to preserve the sample, X-ray diffraction is rarely used. The most important requirement for X-ray diffraction technique is that the substance should be crystalline up to a certain extent only. That is, the atom in the sample should be arranged in a three-dimensional periodic fashion, which is represented by a crystallographic plane. Now, X-ray diffraction occurs due to the scattering of X-ray from this set of planes following the Bragg's law. That is 2d sin theta is equal to n lambda, in which d is the distance between the planes, lambda is the wavelength, and n is the order of the diffraction. Now the most common method of X-ray diffraction is the powder X-ray diffraction method. In this method, a collimated monochromatic X-ray beam is directed at the powdered sample which is spread on a support. At least a few milligrams of sample is required here. Now the sample holder is able to rotate, so the X-ray gets scattered from the crystallographic planes of the sample, and a very specific X-ray diffraction pattern which is specific to the particular element is obtained. So this can be used as a signature of the material for comparison. The intensities of the diffracted beam in this method are then recorded by a detector which is fixed on a movable carriage, which can also be further rotated. So the angle position thus can be measured in terms of angle 2 theta, where theta is the angle of diffraction. Now powder diffraction data, they are presented as a diffractogram in which the diffracted intensity is shown as a function of the scattering angle. Now relative to other methods of analysis, powder X-ray diffraction method is a rapid, non-destructive analysis of a multi-component mixture without any need for the separation of samples. Now this actually gives the laboratories an opportunity to quickly analyze the unknown sample, materials, and perform material characterization in many fields including forensic sciences. Now progress in the field of hardware and software has led to the manufacture of highly improved and fast detectors which have actually improved the analytical capability of the technique relative to the speed of the analysis. Also, the high precision and accuracy in the measurement of interplanar spacing, scaling down to a fraction of angstroms, results in an authoritative identification used in patents, criminal cases, etc. Now coming to a brief sketch of X-ray fluorescence technique, this is also a non-destructive technique which is very rapid and requires minimal or in fact no sample preparation. In this technique, an X-ray source is used to irradiate the specimen. As a result, the ionization of the atoms take place, that is, one or more electrons may be ejected out of the atom, but the energy of the X-ray used to irradiate the sample should be more than the ionization energy of the sample. Now these highly energetic rays are strong enough to remove even the tightly bound atoms. So once the electrons are removed, the electronic structure of the atom becomes unstable. As a result, the electrons from higher orbital jump to the lower orbital. This causes the elements in the specimen to emit or fluoresce their characteristic X-ray, which are secondary X-rays. So a detection system is used to measure the peaks of the emitted X-ray for qualitative or quantitative measurements of the elements and their amounts. Now this emitted radiation is characteristic of the wavelength, which actually helps in the identification of the element. Coming to a brief sketch of Raman and infrared spectroscopy. Now before going into the details of this spectroscopy method, let us first briefly discuss what do we mean by Raman effect. Now Raman effect is nothing but the inelastic scattering of a photon, which was discovered by C.V. Raman long way back. By inelastic scattering we mean that the kinetic energy of an incident particle is not conserved. Some of the energy is either lost or increased. So when photons are scattered from an atom or a molecule, although most of the photons are scattered elastically, which is the Rayleigh's scattering, but a small fraction of the scattered photon are scattered by excitation, with the scattered photons having frequency or wavelength different from the incident photon, thus either higher or lower than that. So this shift in the wavelength or frequency of the photon is what we call as Raman shift. So the higher wavelength side is called the Stokes-Raman spectrum, while the lower wavelength side is called the anti-Stokes-Raman spectrum. Now Raman and infrared spectroscopy, these are the two spectroscopic techniques which can produce very efficient and accurate detection of the pigments or color additive which are present in the glass. In particular, Raman spectroscopy analysis offers a very high discrimination and match certainty, as glass transmits a relatively broad Raman spectrum due to the color additives mixed into the glass. Now the use of infrared spectroscopy to determine the molecular structure had its roots established in the 19th century, once the infrared region of the electromagnetic spectrum had been discovered by Sir William Herschel in 1800, while the Raman effect was discovered by C.V. Raman in 1928 only, which resulted in the Nobel Prize in 1930. Now in the past, the application of both infrared and Raman spectroscopy to forensic had actually been difficult due to the quantity of the material that was required for the analysis, and also in most of the cases the destruction of the sample had to be done. But in 1970s, the optical microscopes were coupled with spectroscopes to provide characteristic identification data from spatially minimal regions of samples. So no destruction or sample preparation was then required. Now both the techniques are capable of recording data from particles even in the pictogram range, so no destruction of the particles is required. Despite of this, both the techniques have advantages as well as disadvantages, which actually tell one or the other technique is preferred for specific applications. For example, the presence of water or hydrated chemical species in specimens can hamper the mid-infrared analysis, while the optical dependence of Raman effect upon molecular polarizability rather than the dipole moment for the infrared means that a polar group such as OH group and CO group are better seen in infrared spectrum, whereas the homopolar groups carbon-carbon or nitrogen-nitrogen are better seen in Raman spectrum. Now, a major factor in Raman spectroscopy application in forensics is the ability to overcome fluorescence emission, and this needed the laser excitation at longer wavelengths from visible to the near infrared region of electromagnetic spectrum. Now, so nowadays modern spectroscopic laboratories in forensics, they have such laser sources such as the samples which may be colored like the colored glass. Now these techniques make possible the recording of the sealed sample contained in their evidence bag, seized at source and need not be opened in the analytical library. Now, the molecular fingerprint that is provided from the mid-infrared spectrum or Raman spectrum is well characterized, so it becomes very easy to differentiate between chemically similar materials and not so in other cases. Now let us do a brief sketch of what these spectroscopy are. Now in Raman spectroscopy, a monochromatic radiation of given wavelength, it strikes the sample and gets scattered in all the directions. Now, most of the scattered radiation is elastic, but some of it is changed in wavelength, either increased or decreased, called the Raman shift, by an amount that corresponds to the sample's Raman active vibrational mode wavelength. Now, the Raman shift can be positive as well as negative. Now, some of the lines, anti-Stokes lines, are shown also. In this spectroscopy, it is actually the Stokes bands that are measured, since these have the higher intensity and involve transitions from lower to higher vibrational energy levels. Now, in mid-infrared transmission setup case, the radiation from a broadband source passing through a sample is observed by the infrared active vibrational mode of wavelength lambda. Now, both mid-infrared and Raman spectroscopy are commonly used in microscopy-based configurations in which the vibrational spectrometer is interfered with optical microscopy system, which enables both visual and spectroscopic examination. Out of the two, Raman spectroscopy offers some practical advantages over the infrared one, as Raman spectroscopy is a scattering technique that uses a laser source, and so as such there is minimal requirement for the sample preparation and presentation, and so the technique has a higher spatial resolution. Now, since colored glass are made from different materials, so the Raman effect, that is the Raman scattered band intensity, and the infrared absorbance observed will be different for different glasses, and so a direct comparison with the existing data can be made. Now, let us summarize what we have actually studied in this module. We have actually come to know that through refractive index typically performing glass fragment identification is important, but since refractive index data overlaps, and that is the reason why elemental analysis of glass becomes very important. Now, elemental analysis of glass fragments, it actually helps us in determining the chemical composition of the glass, and thus helps us to identify the source. Now, we have also studied that although wet chemical analysis can also be done, but most of the time it is time consuming, as a result of which spectroscopic techniques are used. So, the only requirement for these spectroscopic techniques is that each of the observed and the measured values must be consistent with the question and the known samples in order to prove same source. Now, if any of the findings differentiate, then the conclusion must be that the questioned glass sample cannot be associative with the known sample.